If you don't know where your leads are really coming from, you're leaving money on the table. In this episode, we break down how to track what actually drives revenue, not just clicks, not just calls, so you can stop wasting ad dollars and scale smarter. My name is Tyler Dolph, and I am your host. I am also the CEO of our full-service digital marketing agency focused on helping exclusively family law firms thrive online called Rocket Clicks. And today we have the co-founder of our law firm called Sterling Lawyers, which is a 30-attorney family law firm here in Wisconsin. Tony's also the president of the agency and helps run this business day to day. And then we have James Patterson. James is the revenue operations director and the paid media expert on all of our law firm clients here at Rocket Clicks. He is going to break down the importance of gathering, tracking, and optimizing data as it relates to your paid media spend. This is a can't miss episode. If you are not leveraging a CRM or understand where every lead in your funnel is going and how you're tracking it, make sure to stay tuned. Gentlemen, we're going to talk about a very important subject today, something that we talk about all the time at the agency, which is tracking success in your marketing. We have lots of clients who come to us and we ask the question, how are you tracking leads? Do you have a CRM? What happens when someone engages with your brand? And sometimes they're very buttoned up, and other times, they say, well, I got this, napkin that I write the calls on. And um, so it's a wide variety of how law firms track their leads. We obviously have a strong opinion on how they should track their leads. So, James, why don't you get us started with kind of the first thing a law firm should do when thinking about what do I do with this data? How do I track this data? What happens there?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing in terms of how we can better track performance in paid media is to create an integration between your CRM and those ad platforms. A lot of people don't realize that several of these CRMs, especially the bigger ones, connect directly with platforms like Google Ads, as well as offline conversions in Meta as well. But also, if you have, let's say, a Lawmatics, CRM or something that's, not quite as shiny and large as maybe like a Salesforce or a HubSpot, you can still connect those integrations between your CRM and the ads platform by using a simple Zapier pull into a Google Sheet. So effectively, what you're accomplishing here is you're now pulling in data from, obviously, as users come in through a web form or a call into your law firm, right? Get in there. Instead of optimizing and telling your ad platforms to go after those types of conversion events, we can now go and optimize and bring back data from folks as they obviously move through the sales journey in your CRM. So obviously with family law firms, that cycle can be fairly long at times. So certainly having these types of integrations can be really powerful to make sure Google Ads is going after the right type of customers. The accounts that we like to set up with our clients is to make sure we have these integrations. Ones that already have these are often already really performing really great, even if there's some things messed up with structure and things like that we've talked in some of our previous roadmap meetings here. Um, and the reason for that is by pulling in that data into the platform, effectively, Google's AI and machine learning is able to really truly understand what's the best type of customer and lead that you're trying to drive and go after folks that look more like that, less like the guys that call in and want a totally different service that you don't even offer.
100%. So, Tony, I know you set up our own CRM for Sterling Lawyers way back in the day, and we've seen that evolve over a long period of time. Talk to us about the evolution of the data that you were getting kind of in the early days and why you made some of the pivots you did to get to the point where we have this really functional waterfall of data like we have today.
I mean, our original source of truth while we were building our Salesforce instance was a Google Sheet. Like that's kind of where we started. It's where a lot of people start. Coming from a call center background where we had 250 call center agents. In the last business I was in, I kind of understood a little more about how to structure the Google Sheet probably than most of our clients do or most of our listeners do. But it's a super powerful tool that once you kind of evolve from tracking what in a Google Sheet is essentially unstructured data, because you can put anything you want in any cell, which can be very hard from a reporting perspective. That's one of the most difficult parts, because if you want to put a pivot table together, or you want to create graphs or whatever for any of your potential business activities, if one column is like source and you put paid media and paid and PPC and then PPC all lowercase, all of those are different elements and like they're not the same thing. So now I can't really do good reporting. So like one of the biggest benefits of the CRM is like implementing structured data, implementing good reporting so you can actually see what's working. And as you gain more data, essentially what you're doing, our position from an advertising perspective is what we're doing in advertising is actually two things. One, we're creating brand impressions for you, and two, we're actually buying data. We are purchasing data and then optimizing it. So like the way we think about marketing is purchase, analyze, optimize, and then purchase some more, analyze more, optimize. And like, you're just going to keep doing that cycle over and over and over again. And you're essentially buying information, and you're going to make your hypotheses tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter until you have basically stasis. And there's not a lot of improvement that you can make, and you're going to go to the next channel and you're going to do the same thing again. So, structuring your data right, getting the right events tracked, and getting those things implemented give you a massive advantage. So James was mentioning the machine learning. So if you think about your business waterfall as a law firm, like at Sterling currently, every day we get about 100 leads come in. 23 or so of those get scheduled for a consultation. And of those consultations, we get about 18 quotes that we get to deliver to clients. There's a big difference between those 18 that get quotes and the 82 that do not get quotes. And when you're sending calls and web leads back as your conversion tracking methodology, you're optimizing for all 100, which include those 82 that didn't get a quote versus just the 18 that did. And you're going to have a much better return on ad spend. You're going to have a much better efficiency in your paid metrics. You're going to be able to be in more platforms because you're not going to be wasting as much ad dollars. So there's a lot of advantages to doing this well and doing it right, and like investing in the system, because once you invest in it, it just will essentially become a money printing machine for you that you can just continue to activate over and over and over again.
So I want to stay on this subject for a minute because I think it's so important, and we've seen so many stories that just add value to this. And it is, if you're listening to this for the first time and you're not tracking your data to the level that Tony was just talking about, what we're talking about is just gathering information about how people find your law firm, whether that's through a paid channel like Google Ads, or whether it's through Google Maps or Hearsay or a billboard or whatever. Our point is that you need to be tracking these things independently, and you can't just rely on asking your customers how they found you. We hear this all the time, and I'm here to tell you that just asking them is the wrong way to track your data. James, can you expand on that subject a little bit more to help law firm owners understand the value of real concrete data?
Yeah, absolutely. So without having the correct infrastructure in your forms as well as in your call tracking platforms to pull that source medium and GCLID, which is your Google Click ID from paid traffic, these types of data points into your client records when they come in as new leads, you get all kinds of issues, right? You don't know what's actually working. We talked a lot about the waterfall already on this revenue roadmap, and without those proper events being captured on the client record, if there are major fluctuations in your waterfall suggesting there's a channel or an issue, right, that's going on that's really causing performance decline for your business, without those events being captured, we're unable to really diagnose as effectively, right? Because everything's being in there kind of at a high level, at a blanket level. We can't really dive into the level that we want to. In addition to that is obviously then when we're talking about connecting platforms like this, right? Like actually being able to say, hey, Google, I want you to take credit for this lead we drove so that we can go after, folks that are of higher value to us that actually turn into funded clients. You effectively are unable to do that. So it's really twofold. It's going to give you the power to be able to diagnose when issues are going awry. It will also allow you to understand, right, what's your most highest impact revenue driving sources that you want to obviously continue to assure and invest in. And then it's going to make your platforms better. So there's a lot of really good reasons why this isn't just like a good to have. This is a need to have for all law firms.
100%. I think this dives into our second point, which is like embracing the data gap. And Tony, I know you and I talk about this all the time, and that people don't buy in single transactions any longer, right? They gain brand awareness, and even though family law isn't a brand heavy practice area, there are still multiple touch points in this life cycle. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of understanding that, you shouldn't just measure your success based on the last interaction someone had?
Yeah, I think the most recent data on number of impressions required to have recall of your brand name and what you do, it's 32 in 2025. And I believe I believe every individual consumer sees about 100,000 ads every single day, different brands. So the likelihood that you're going to get a one click, one call, and now I'm going to convert into a funded agreement, that's not real. That's not how it works. That's not how people buy. Even silly things like, my wife takes notes in church every week, and she likes to color code her notes. So she did research on the types of pens that she wanted, and pens are like $7, right? A pack of pens is $7 off Amazon. I don't know how many different brand impressions she got for all the different pens she got, but I can guarantee you it wasn't a one click and purchase scenario. That's not how people buy stuff. And that's especially not how people buy family law services. When we've done in-depth studies on the length of time before they actually contact the firm by interviewing past clients that we had good relationships with, they started their process 18 to 36 months before they started interacting with us. Like they were researching, can I keep my same job? What happens with the marital home? How much time am I going to have with my kids? All of this like massive amount of information that they don't know because they're going through tons and tons of decision-making processes. So I think it's really important to understand that like you're not going to get a perfect attribution model in here, which is why we measure on a multi-channel attribution model system. Because we know it takes more than one impression, one click. That's not how it works. And the more you really embrace that, the better. I think it's even worse in the family law space because a lot of the research you're doing is in incognito mode. You're deleting your sessions because you don't want someone to grab your phone and be like, oh, why are you researching Sterling Lawyers? They're a divorce firm. What are you doing so the tracking's even worse in this space as a result because they're trying to hide it. So our rule of thumb is we think we capture about 40 to 60% of attribution in our paid channels. So when we measure how effective are we keep that in mind. And we've done studies. I think, James, when you several years ago originally came on the account, you were seeing Bing wasn't working, quote unquote. So I'm like, okay, cool, turn it off. Turn it off, and we watched our multi-channel attribution model, and we saw our leads go down. We saw our leads go down by about 5 to 7%. Then we turned it back on. They went right back up, and we actually saw our cost per lead as the leads went down go up. So we saw the exact opposite of what we expected to see, and it's because the attribution models suck in this space. Especially in the space of family law. So I think it's really important to just understand that and like understand the technology and the gaps in the technology. Apple's becoming more and more consumer friendly from a data protection perspective, at least like giving your data up to other people. They still take all your data, but they're not giving it back to the ad platforms, which makes it even harder because most of your traffic, I think it's 78% right now, is coming on a mobile device, and more than 50 or 60% of those are on an iPhone. That stuff is going to be less likely to be tracked well. So it's a fairly important point to understand the gap in the data and embrace it. Don't try to change it, and don't chase yourself trying to fix it, because like good luck changing Apple's opinion on how they're going to build their iPhones, because it's not likely going to be something you and Tim Cook are going to have a good conversation about.
Well said. Well said. I think it's so important to recognize that we're kind of talking out of both sides of our mouth, right? We're saying, hey, you have to track every piece of data you have access to, and at the same time saying, hey, you're not going to have access to all the data, so embrace that fact and understand that that's the reality we live in. And so, James, you touched on it a little bit, but a third point here being track revenue generating conversions. To talk just a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times when we're kicking off with new clients, one of the first steps we'll do is do a paid media audit. So obviously, all the law firms out there listening to this, I'm sure you've gone through this process before. What we look at is one of the most important things to ensure is in a good spot, even before we start building, is that they're optimizing for the right conversion actions. So at minimum, that's going to be web form submission successfully, and then assuming they have some type of call tracking platform, then connected calls, obviously driven by those ad platforms, and that's totally minimum. Because what this is going to segue into next is really, yeah, that's good data to tell the platforms to optimize for, but it's really still not going to be your highest impact conversion action that you'll want to point these ad platforms at.
Yeah,
So the way that we like to
that's your 100 lead to 18 quote.
Right.
It's great that you know where the 100 leads are coming from, but like there's a lot of junk in there. So just tying it back.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things that we always like to do when we kick off with clients here is understand the different stages within their CRM or however they're tracking their customers that are obviously working with them. And what we'll do is create specific conversion actions based off of different stages in there. So that can be obviously the final stage, which is they sign their retainer, they're an active client, right? They paid up, or somewhere in the middle. So I think Tony, you had said at one point, what we did with Sterling is we you're going to always want some quantity of this, right, to be able to give a reliable and consistent feedback to the ad platforms. So we like to find a stage within the CRM in which folks are going to get to at a pretty consistent, frequent basis that we can pull back to the platform. So what we use for Sterling is quote pending. So the user's actually gone from lead to opportunity, met with the attorney, and actually received a quote. So we know based off our waterfall that there's a high percent of folks that get a quote that end up becoming funded agreements. So we know it's going to be a really high quality conversion action to optimize around, and that's completely improved that account over the course of time there as we've started to optimize for that. And what's really powerful there is like obviously by knowing how many quotes we need to give out to our customers to get a funded agreement, we can then go assign value back to that. So we can actually be going after revenue driving type conversion actions like that based off of your CRM data.
Yeah, and what you're really trying to do in that is like figure out, you want to go as far down the funnel as you possibly can and get statistically relevant data. So it's like a balance there. So I think it's a 30-day period. I think at a minimum, we would be looking for 30 to 50 actions that would go back. Anything less than that, you got a pretty weak sample size. So then you'd want to go up to the next level of the funnel. So the further down you can go, the better, but it's going to be contingent on how much data do you have. And that's why we, like I said before, marketing is purchasing data, analyzing it and optimizing, and then doing it again. So you're constantly just retesting your hypotheses. And the more you do that and the more you can push things down, the more return on spend you're going to get and the better your profitability is going to be.
Yeah, well said. And so I think it's important to recognize that not all parts of the funnel you're talking about are created equal, right? So how do you go about the process of assigning value to those different interactions that happen? Since we know, people don't buy in a single interaction. So, okay, I don't want to over optimize for just lead forms because I know that people actually find our website and do research on the front end. So how do I build that process?
Yeah, so the way that we've done it with clients is by building that waterfall, like we've been talking about a lot on this, by understanding what's your average matter value, right, of folks that end up actually working with you. We can then reverse engineer how many leads we need, both from combination of web form and calls to then becoming marketing qualified leads to opportunities, so actually working with an attorney to then producing that quote, like I talked about previously, to then ultimately getting assigned retainer. So by kind of reverse engineering what our average value is for a signed client hiring us, we're able to then assign value back, right? So if it's, let's say our average order value is 10,000 for a divorce case. If we need to give out two quotes, we know quotes are worth about 5,000, right? So you can do this all the way back with how many leads it takes to come down. So as we're looking at the right stages to optimize for, we can give that value back to Google or other ad platforms to really give it a target in terms of what we're trying to get back out of our ad spend with a return on ad spend goal there.
Hey, family law firm leaders, my partner Tony Carls just released his book where he lays bare our precise blueprint for growing Sterling lawyers from 0 to 17 million. This is the blueprint that we still use daily, and Tony explains it in very simple terms. The truth is, this is not simple to do. Success requires and demands hard work, but if you have the patience and the work ethic to do it, your family law firm will succeed.
As it relates to a return on ad spend, because I think we talk to our clients about this all the time, and I'm sure this is going to come up. What should attorneys expect? Like, if I'm spending $100 online, how much should I get back, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so obviously understanding, right, like every law firm is going to be a little bit different on what their actual case value is, right? So a law firm that's really going after the most premier, complex, high net worth type divorce, right, are going to have a little bit of more wiggle room in terms of, what they're willing to spend up front to get those leads. Generally speaking, we want to get at minimum 400 return on everything that we're doing in these platforms, knowing that there is data discrepancy between what we're driving and what obviously the law firm is going to be getting back. We want to adjust those goals to often be on the more conservative end. That way we can kind of offset the fact that not all of this is going to be perfect one-to-one. And then from there, it's really just doing some optimizations to see where you can push and pull, right? So obviously the more stringent your target's going to be, then the less likely Google's going to spend, the same number of dollars to bid up and get your ads shown at a higher rate. The more you loosen that, right, the more opportunity you'll get to potentially outbid some of your competitors. So that's where really the fun part comes with obviously understanding the law firms, goals in terms of what they're trying to get out of their platforms, what's their average order value and stuff like that for a signed retainer. And then kind of, again, reverse engineering back into that to making sure we're doing everything on the platform side to set a good target there.
Yeah, I think an important reminder there is that everything we're talking about is an investment in growth, right? If you're leveraging paid ads to try and save your firm or create a life raft to get you through a bad month, like this, everything we're saying is not accurate. The revenue goals and the return on ad spend goals we're talking about assumes that there is a desire to grow your firm and reinvest into your firm so that it can continue to grow in the future. And I think that's a really important point because I think sometimes law firm owners will say, "Well, I have to get a 5 to 1. For every dollar I spend, I got to get $5 back." And it's important to ask the why. What's happening there, and why do you require that type of return as opposed to being able to reinvest into your business?
I think part of it too that is misunderstood is most of the time these conversations are pointed at marketing cost, and the less effective and efficient your operation is, the lower you need your cost from a marketing perspective to be. So coming from background being in the affiliate space, we were able to compete in a national level at very high CPCs because we had a really good call center. It actually had nothing to do with our marketing. Like we drove traffic, we converted it at the best we could, about 20% conversion rate on the landing pages, but our call center performed at like 42% conversion rate. which allowed us to like be number one in the space. It had nothing to do with our marketing. It had everything to do with our operation. And when our operation started performing worse, we had to scale back our marketing because the cost per lead wasn't appropriate for the return on ad spend that was required. So these two things are very connected. Like your total, in a law firm, you really shouldn't be spending more than 12% on your sales and marketing. You're likely not to be profitable. A good way to think about that is if you're spending 15 to 20%, if you're spending 20% of your budget on marketing, that means for every $1 that comes into the firm, or for every $5 that come into the firm, $1 is actually just going to marketing platforms. Like that's not good. So it's not what you want. And you still haven't paid your intake team. You still haven't done a lot of things. You've just paid your ad platforms. So you're going to want to see a higher return on ad spend, but part of the levering point is not just in platform conversions, on website conversion, but also like how are you actually converting in the funnel? So like how effectively are you answering the phones? How effectively are you following up with your web leads? How good are the people that are doing that job, scheduling them into consultations? So, and then how well are your attorneys monetizing those appointments, or are you kind of moving everything around and changing the schedule and you get a lot of no-shows and a lot of cancellations, and you're going to see you need your marketing costs to come down pretty significantly because your operation's ineffective.
Yes, it's very, very intricate. And I think just to add some more complexity to this mix, we do need to talk about phone calls, right? Sometimes attorneys will say, well, they called me, so I'm going to count it as a phone call. Well, in reality, maybe they saw an ad or saw a billboard and got your phone number from that. And so how do we treat phone calls, James? What do we do with those?
Yeah. So, in terms of working with our clients, one of the things that we require to work with us and would really push for all law firms that aren't working with us to go out and do is to make sure you have some sort of call tracking platform purchased for your organization. Tying this all back, I know we talked about attribution, sending the right data, right? Like if you don't have a call tracking system and you're a law firm, you're probably getting a decent amount of calls, probably more typically than web forms coming in through your website. You need to have call tracking platforms set up to be able to really understand what different marketing channels and sources are obviously driving both crappy calls to your business as well as calls that end up turning into signed retainers and revenue for your business. So there's a number of different platforms out there. A lot of them do integrate directly with GA4 and Google Ads and Meta. So you're able to actually optimize for conversion actions coming from those call tracking platforms. In addition to that, not only from obviously an ads perspective, we're talking about tracking and attribution and all these things, is also just from like an operations standpoint. You can get a lot of great understanding of what's going on, right? When folks are calling in, you can set up different flows and things like that to help you better manage the inbound calls coming in and making sure they're getting routed to the right place. So like Tyler, you talked about this attorney example, obviously return callers, right? By using a call tracking system, a lot of times you can then make sure that call then gets routed the correct way. That activity is then updated in your CRM for that existing customer, and they're not treated as a brand net new one. And of course, net new leads that are calling in through Google Business Profile, or maybe an ad extension or a PPC ad to the website. Those obviously coming in as net new leads into your CRM. So call tracking platforms are huge in this space. Highly, highly recommend it. It's always a big surprise when we're kicking off new clients and it's like, oh, you don't have this. It's fun because it's a lot of times they don't understand the power of this, both again marketing wise and operationally. So that's my spiel. If you don't have it, definitely get one. It's definitely required for marketing to be able to understand where there's opportunities and how we can send data back to some of these platforms.
One other, just to put a exclamation point on something James just said there. So a lot of times what we'll see is law firms won't actually be capturing all of their data. So like the intake team will only enter things that are qualified, and they won't enter all the other stuff. that is like one of the biggest mistakes and best ways to spend a lot more money in advertising, because you're not entering all of your data. You need to like treat the data as if it's gold, and like even if it's not the right type of gold and you can't monetize it, you can stop sending it in if you capture it. And like the benefit of having the call center enter everything, track everything, is that data then goes back to the marketing team and the machine learning systems to optimize better, versus only entering qualified stuff in your CRM. So it's one of the biggest opportunities, is just capture everything. Don't just enter the stuff that you want. Like literally capture everything. If you're doing family law and a criminal defense lead comes in, you don't do criminal defense, enter the criminal defense lead. And we're going to get the tracking information off of it and see where it came from. Then we're going to try to minimize that exposure on those channels. So it's James, I think you mentioned that. It's a really important point. Capture all of the data. Like you're already purchasing it, leverage it.
100%. Guys, really appreciate the time. Love the conversation. If you're listening to this and you're confused, we have a lot of different episodes diving even deeper into the weeds as it relates to everything law firm growth is related to. But at the end of the day, this is all about just tracking your data. You can make it really easy and really simple to start with, and you can always get more complex. So if you found this episode valuable, you will love our next episode as we dive into keyword categories in Google Search Console. We'll show you how to unlock new opportunities by understanding how people actually search for family law services. Click here to go to the next episode.